Based on the novel by Austen Wright, the film Nocturnal Animals was directed by Tom Ford. The premise of the story is that a wealthy art gallery owner named Susan, who is played by Amy Adams, receives a novel manuscript in the mail from her ex-husband Edward, who was played by Jake Gyllenhaal. This film visually shows a story within a story, the manuscript within Susan's reality. This scene is where the two spheres begin to blend. Before this scene, Tony, who is the main character in the manuscript, and also played by Jake Gyllenhaal, was separated from his family the night before. His wife and daughter were taken by a few Texan road rebels. Tony was also taken and dropped off in the desert, where he hid from the men until sunrise and found his way to the sheriff's office. Susan, in reality, is reading from the manuscript. The scene begins with Tony and the sheriff driving to where Tony believes he was dropped off the night before. Tom Ford utilizes a series of quick, individual close-up shots paired with color techniques and one music track to make the viewer invested in the melancholy, grief, and tragedy of the manuscript.
I came up right here because I walked along that arroyo over there.
Yeah, this is part of the old Valdez place. The old cat.
This extreme long shot acts as an establishing shot, telling the viewers that the manuscript takes place in a vast, barren desert. I also want you to pay attention to the music as you watch the scene. Tom Ford uses one continuous instrumental piece that sets a somber but oddly calming mood. This background music links the two separate spheres of the manuscript and reality into one.
Cattle station down that way a bit next to where they burn their garbage. This road leads to it.
Tom Ford uses many cinematic techniques to portray the differences and similarities between the two realities. These differences and similarities draw the viewer in and create a bond between the audience and the characters. The first thing I want to highlight is his use of color editing. Natural lighting is used for all the shots in this scene, along with analogous color schemes, both of which create a cohesive feeling for the scene. But disrupting that feeling is the contrasting color schemes for each story. The purpose of analogous color schemes is to create an overall tone and feeling of ease in the scene. The manuscript is portrayed in warm tones, a more golden lighting. This creates a feeling of fake reality. In contrast, the shots of Susan simultaneously reading the manuscript are all cool tones, with an emphasis on blue. It creates a feeling of loneliness and sadness, and emphasizes Susan's blue eyes, which tell a lot about how she is feeling while she is reading the manuscript.
Sure, you're all right.
Mom? Is it you? Is everything alright?
Yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to hear your voice. I miss you.
You woke me up. I'm still in bed. It's Sunday morning, Mom. Can I call you later?
Yeah, call me later. Go back to bed, sweetheart.
You sound weird. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Go back to bed. I love you.
Me too.
I'll call you later.
The use of individual close-up shots in this scene allows for a quick switch in perspective from Tony to Susan to the bodies to the sheriff and back to Tony. All of the characters in the film are experiencing and finding the dead bodies simultaneously. The quick rotation of shots allows the viewer to experience the feeling of these deaths through each perspective. By only having one person in each shot, the viewer sympathizes and empathizes with the character portrayed. There is no dialogue in this series of shots, which adds to the shock and suspense of the scene. It also allows the reader to decide how to feel based off Susan and Tony's reactions. There are also distinct parallels within the manuscript and reality that add an eerie feeling to the scene. Because Susan is reading the novel, what is visually portrayed as the manuscript is Susan's interpretation of it. She cast her real ex-husband as Tony, the main character. Tony's wife is played by Isla Fisher, who is also a petite redhead who looks very similar to Susan. Susan's daughter and Tony's daughter are also redheads that look alike. Susan from the start of the novel is placing herself within the chaos and grief of the manuscript. The first parallel between the spheres is the emphasis of Susan's gold cross necklace, then a close-up on the dead wife's gold cross necklace. You can see how invested in the manuscript Susan is because of her reaction to this parallel. The manuscript has disturbed her so much that she calls to check up on her daughter. When she does this, the most shocking parallel between the spheres of reality and the manuscript present itself. She is in the exact same position as the dead wife and daughter were, but instead of on a red couch, on red covers. This eerie parallel adds more mystery into the plot and draws the viewer in more. After Susan hangs up the phone, the viewers can tell Susan is shocked and troubled by the manuscript because she returns to the visual of the dead bodies on the couch. The use of red here is used to symbolize the rage, power, and violence used to kill the wife and daughter. Susan also returns to the close-up of Edward's face of grief and extreme sadness, showing how impacted she is by the novel. Tom Ford successfully creates a contradiction for the readers, leaving them invested in both stories and wanting to know more. He creates two separate spheres, the manuscript and reality, for the viewer by implementing different analogous color schemes. But the continuous music, quick alternating close-up shots, and distinct parallels between the manuscript and reality make the viewer feel as if the manuscript and reality were one.